The following is an AZPM original production.
For AZPM, I'm Tony Paniagua, and this is Arizona Spotlight. Mark McLemore is away this week. Coming up, what's been the longest distance you've ever traveled by hiking, running, bicycling, or swimming? In this special episode, Going the Distance, you'll meet Tucson residents who are doing the extra mile, literally. Bruce Gungle is an ultramarathoner who has completed multiple races.
Anyone who does ultra-endurance events of any nature is asked over and over again, why do you do it? That just seems crazy. It's insane.
Laura Holanszky is part of the University of Arizona Women's Triathlon program, which won a national championship last year.
I'm not going to say being a collegiate triathlete is easy, because it is not. You definitely have to be 100% dedicated.
And Michael McKisson wants to ride his bicycle on all of Tucson's streets.
I'm about 80% done, so I've done about 2,000 miles of those 2,600 miles in the city.
Those stories are next on Arizona Spotlight. Many people would like to complete a marathon someday as part of a bucket list, but others frequently go beyond the 26.2 miles required to accomplish that goal. Tucson resident and retired scientist Bruce Gungle is an example. From biking to running or hiking, he has finished multiple challenges in various locations. Among these is the Badwater Ultra Marathon in California. It's more than 100 miles and includes Death Valley in the middle of the summer. Gungle has done it 4 times.
The Badwater is a 135-mile run, and that starts at the lowest point in the contiguous 48 states, which is 282 feet below sea level, and finishes on the flank of Mount Whitney at the Portal Trailhead, which is 8,600 feet above sea level. And then some people will actually take their number off, no longer part of the race, and continue into the wilderness area to the summit of Mount Whitney, which is 14,500-ish. Mount Whitney is the highest peak in the lower 48, and the original idea behind that was to run from the lowest to the highest point in one go. And a guy named Al Arnold, back in, I believe it was 1977, was the first person to do that. It took him a couple of days for the first crossing. The whole idea behind it is to deal with the harshest elements out there, as well as the 135 miles, so it takes place in the middle of the summer, typically in July. They keep a log or a record book of all the people who do it, whether it's part of the race or just solo crossings on their own. And it only counts if you do the crossing from Badwater to Mount Whitney during the summer months.
Okay, we're going to talk about the psychology of doing these things a little bit later, but let's go ahead and talk about the other race that you've participated in, Cocodona. That's 250 miles. Where does that take place?
The gnarly country of central Arizona. So this begins north of Phoenix in Black Canyon City. If you've ever driven up to Flagstaff and stopped for pie, that's Black Canyon City, and goes over the Bradshaw Mountains, through Prescott, through Cottonwood, Sedona. You cross the Verde River in there, and then up onto up the Mogollon Rim to the Colorado Plateau, continue to east of Flagstaff, go over 9,200-foot Mount Eldon, and then come back down and finish in downtown Flagstaff 3 or 4 days later. It's by far my favorite endurance event I've ever done. I just enjoyed every step of it.
How many times have you done that?
Just once. I was supposed to do it again this year. I threw out my back hauling bags of concrete earlier this spring, and so I had to take a deferment. They give you a 75% credit to come back the next year. So I'll do it next year.
You've put yourself through some very long races, more than marathons, and you've told me that sometimes you've been asked, why would you do this to yourself? What is the answer, if there could be a simple answer to that?
That's the million-dollar question that anyone who does ultra-endurance events of any nature is asked over and over again. Why do you do it? That just seems crazy. It's insane. And I've heard all kinds of things. such as when you're a fetus, you hear the heartbeat of the mother, and that gets locked in your head, and you go out and you run, and that's just like your footsteps, and so that's why we run, or other things. And I don't think it's that complicated. It's setting a goal for yourself and then achieving that goal, and there's an immense satisfaction in that. And to set yourself what appears to be a very difficult goal that you don't know whether or not you can achieve, and then, in fact, hanging in there and achieving it, there's just nothing as rewarding as that, whether it's doing an ultra marathon or a business deal or a painting, honestly. And I think that's what drives us all to do our various hobbies and interests and activities. And I just happen to take one that has a physical element to it.
In addition to ultra marathons, you've also traveled to Asia, to Nepal, a country that a lot of people have wanted to see. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yeah. So, I did my first trip a year ago, and then I went back this past November for a second trip. And, I just fell in love with the place the first time. The Himalayas, of course, biggest mountain range in the world in terms of height and in complexity, really. And it's just a beautiful place. The people are terrific. The mountains are just phenomenal. So this time when we went back, we decided, myself and a good friend of mine, Jerry Riddick, decided that we would try to summit, a significant peak, get some elevation, see what that felt like. So we went up a peak called Mira, M-E-R-A, Mira Peak. It's in the Everest region, and it's 21,200 feet.
What was that like?
It was fantastic. I think it's just kind of the same thing as the ultra running experience, I suppose. Just the satisfaction of having set myself a challenging goal and then meeting it, succeeding it.
You have run multiple ultra marathons, which is more than a regular marathon at more than 26 miles. When did you discover running, and what has kept you going along the way?
Well, in high school, I was a track guy, but my area was actually high jumping. And then when I went to college, I was a walk-on at Drake University as a high jumper, and I did that for a year. And running, of course, is always incorporated around the edges of that. Coaches always think you should do a running event or two as well, and they were just really painful. They were the shorter things like the quarter mile or the mile. And so I had a little bit of a history of running, and time passed, and I don't know, I was getting married and moving on with life, and I was teaching in Japan, actually, and our whatever you call it, our gym teacher, our PE, physical education teacher at the school, had a thing she came up with for the teachers, to encourage some fitness, where we all would run for a couple of months, and whoever did 100 kilometers would succeed, and whoever couldn't get 100 kilometers done had to buy breakfast for those of us who did. And that really got me into the groove, and I wound up at that point, my longest run eventually was 20 miles. And while I was out running that run, coming back, I had that moment where I was getting close to my house, and I was like, man, I feel like I could just run forever. This is the greatest. And that's when I flipped the switch, and I just wanted to run. It happened. I came back to the States. I had some arthroscopy, so I couldn't run for a while. One of my knees, I had a bucket handle tear in my medial meniscus of my right knee. Didn't run for a while, and then somebody was doing a half marathon over in San Diego, invited my wife and I to go over and do it with them, and I was like, yeah, all right, I'll do that. And then it just was cumulative from there. Did a half marathon. Well, I'm all trained up. I might as well keep going. And then I did a marathon the next year. And then I heard about the Badwater 135 ultra marathon from Death Valley to the top of Mount Whitney, and I was like, I want to do that. And so then I specifically started training for that, doing a 50K, a 50 mile, and then that 100 mile, 24-hour race. and got into Badwater, and the rest is history.
How old were you when you were teaching in Japan?
I turned 30 a couple of months after I got there. I was there for 2 years, and then I went back for 6 months a year later.
You are now in your mid-60s. How much longer do you think you'll be doing these ultramarathons?
That's up to my body. I mean, quite honestly, things hurt more than they used to. My knees are a little bit wonky. Big surprise there. As long as I can keep doing them and coming in under the cutoff times, I'll probably continue to do it. I just do 1 or 2 a year. I'm not a super obsessive compulsive about it. I just like getting out on the trails.
Thank you very much, Bruce Gungle, and good luck moving forward.
Thanks, Tony. This has been great.
Just this week, a group of racers ran through Tucson as part of the new Arizona Monster 300, which spans 309 miles. Bungle says he's not looking at doing this specific race next year because he's considering others, including the Arizona Trail at more than 800 miles. For additional information about the races mentioned, we'll have links on our Arizona Spotlight page at azpm.org. University of Arizona student Laura Holanszky was born in Hungary, where she discovered swimming at the age of 3. By the time she was 16, she had won 11 national championships in her age groups. In 2023, Holanszky joined the University of Arizona triathlon program, where she continues to excel as an athlete and a student. Arizona Spotlight's assistant producer Sophia Hammer has the interview.
What's it like to build up to that level, starting from just the first year?
Wes Johnson, our coach, and Jocelyn Bonney, they started this program in 2023, and their method was culture first. They wanted to set up a very inviting, very positive culture with the right people. It was 10 people at the beginning. We were all over, my teammates were from Canada, Great Britain, Argentina, Brazil, Czech Republic, me from Hungary, and then from United States. It was a very diverse, large, and feminine group. And the first year definitely was a learning experience for both Wes and us, because Wes never coached in NCAA before. And we started something new from the ground. It was very exciting to be part of something new and, making history. We called ourselves the founding females. It's been challenging. It was a big risk because I was very hesitant whether I should apply to this program specifically, because it's a risk. You don't know what kind of people they're going to be and what are we capable together. But also it was equally exciting to be part of something new and set a great example for years to come. And it turned out to be the best decision I could have made.
For those who don't know, what is a triathlon?
So triathlon is consisting of 3 sports. So it's swimming, biking, and running. We do the sprint distance, which is, so bear with me, I'm from Hungary, so we do metric systems. So it's 750-meter swim, a 20-kilometer bike, and a 5K run. So this is in NCAA. This is also called the sprint distance. And the Olympic distance is the twice of this amount.
Did you participate in triathlons in Hungary?
I started swimming at the age of 3, and I was a competitive swimmer until the age of 16. I was an 11-time national champion in swimming. I really was loving swimming, and my parents just wanted to getting me familiar with the water and just wanted to teach me how to swim, and I ended up sticking with it. I never really tried out anything else other than swimming. And then I was 16, and I pretty much had to make a decision whether to continue my swimming all in. I couldn't really concentrate on my education as much. I felt like I was always half asleep in classes. I had to miss out a lot. And I was heavily debating, is it worth it to me? I always like to stand on multiple legs, as we say, because my school was always very important to me and I wanted to establish my future. And so I quit swimming. So I was a civil human being for 2 weeks, pretty much. And then my former swim coach called me and she was like, you can't just quit sports, you have to do something else. That coach of mine went to coach triathletes. So she quit coaching swimming, and she was my favorite coach back in the day. Then she said, come here and just try triathlon and see how you like it. And I told her okay, I'm going to go, but I don't want to ride a bike and I don't want to race. So that's how we started with triathlon. And right now I'm riding bikes and racing. So it turned out great.
Is swimming still your favorite?
I was pretty much born in the water and I've been doing it the longest. I have a big advantage on that. And it's something that you can't really learn after a certain age, I think. It's my most developed expertise.
What's it like to train for 3 different sports?
If you're an NCAA athlete in a collegiate level, you pretty much have to step up your game in a whole different level. Here, training is longer hours than I was used to back home. We train pretty much 3 or 4 times a day. I'm doing a master's degree, so I'm a full-time student. I'm going to classes, like I would never miss a class. Each day, you have each of your minutes calculated. You have to get nutrition, you have to fuel, you have to drink enough, and you have to go back and forth for your classes and trainings, and then, wake up early, but also go to bed early because next day is a big day also. So it's been a very hectic, emotional circle. It's something I don't even imagine how we do. It's mentally and physically exhausting, but you have to put everything you have on the line and you empty yourself after each day. We each push each other, and then it turns out great at the end. I'm not going to say being a collegiate triathlete is easy, because it is not. You definitely have to be 100% dedicated. You kind of put everything in a scale and just navigate what's more important on that day, but also you get the work done.
Laura, can you describe the internal conversation you have to yourself while you're racing?
Sometimes I not even talk to myself at all. Sometimes I just pick a music and then let it spin around my head like a vinyl record. Other times when I'm at the end of the swim, for example, I just say, okay, now you need to get out of the water. You need to take off your glasses and your goggles. Or if I'm wearing a wetsuit, you don't take your goggles and cap off, okay? You just zip your wetsuit. So you can't just, say to yourself, like, I must not screw this up, because everything can go wrong. You can drop your bottle, your elastic bands can break, which you eject your shoes on. Sometimes your arm gets stuck in your wetsuit and you can't get it off. Sometimes you get dropped. Sometimes, you can't get your shoes on. So you have to be in a very good space when you're racing, and it's the best not to freak yourself out during the race. What I usually do is just calm myself and tell myself that everything's going to be okay. You just do your best. You did all the work. Now just here and there, you're just here. You just got to have fun.
Triathlons are so interesting. It's very individual in the sense that you're personally trying to make a certain time, but then you're with a team. Can you speak to that?
Triathlon is an individual sport, but it definitely has an important team aspect to it. We train more than 20 hours a week, and if you're doing it alone, you pretty much go crazy. I think having people around you definitely keep you sane in a sense, but also it makes training more fun, manageable, and it's definitely helpful to have a bunch of very ambitious people around you. We each provide our part to each other. We each push one another on different disciplines. So I'm one of the best swimmer I can say on the team, and then I push the other people to be better. But then I'm not the best cycler, so other people push me on the bike. You each provide what you have, and then as a team you make something better out of it.
By the way, some of our AZPM television viewers may recognize Laura Holanszky's name. She is a student associate with us and has been producing content for Arizona Illustrated. Most people can live in a city for decades and only explore a percentage of all the possible streets, avenues, lanes, and other roads that can spread like a concrete web over a massive amount of acreage. For example, Tucson takes up more than 200 square miles, which is bigger than some of the smallest countries. For resident Michael McKisson, this presents a wonderful opportunity to learn and explore. He is on a quest called Every Street Tucson.
The project is really just designed to ride my bicycle on every inch of every foot of every mile of the city of Tucson. And it turns out there are about 2,600 miles of unique roads inside the city limits. And I'm aiming to ride my bike on all of them. It really came out of this. I met this guy who was visiting Tucson. His name's Eric. And he's sort of a bike influencer on social media. And he spent, a few months here and started riding every street. And I started riding with him, got to know him, and was like, hey, that's kind of a cool idea. And he left, and I said, hey, can I keep going? Was that cool? And he was like, sure, no problem. The reason why I wanted to do it is because I realized that I've lived in this community that I call home for 36 years, and I love this community. And I also realized how little of it I'd actually seen. And so the idea of, trying to ride my bike on every single street and say I have seen every part of this community was really appealing to me. And so I started out, and I'm about 80% done. So I've done about 2,000 miles of those 2,600 miles in the city.
That is very impressive. What are the logistics like? You mentioned prior to this interview that you use a service called Wanderer. Can you tell us about that,
Yeah,
please?
it's Wanderer Earth, and so it's an online service that connects with some of the like fitness tracking apps like Strava, and so every time I go out for a ride, I have a GPS tracker and I track my ride. I come back, I upload it to Strava, and then it connects to Wander Earth. And what it does is it basically compares where you've already been to where you were, and it gives you credit sort of for any new location that you haven't been before, and it puts it on a map and shows you, what you've completed and what you still have left to complete.
How did you decide where to start and how to keep it going? Did you just open up a map of the city of Tucson and say, oh, that looks interesting over there?
If I could start over and redo the project, I would do it differently. Originally my goal was to never get in a car to accomplish all 2,600 miles. But I made the mistake of starting close to my own home and getting sort of the low-hanging fruit because it was really fun to see your progress go up quickly. But what that means now is to get to anything new, and most of the locations that I have left are either very far east side or very far south side. And so to get to anything new, I'm riding 15 or 20 miles of roads that I've already ridden. I've got a family, I've got a job, and so those things start to eat into some of the time. So now I'm, kind of in some cases I'm getting in a car, taking my bike out there, getting close to wherever those roads are, and then riding a bunch of them, and then coming home. Summer is the best time for me. I can get up really early, go get a bunch of roads, be back before the kids are even awake, and go about my day. Last summer, I was fortunate enough to lead a study abroad program overseas in Italy, and so I spent most of my summer not in Tucson, and so I didn't get to accomplish as much as I would like. And so I'm looking forward to this summer to maybe, hopefully, try and tackle that the last 600 miles.
What keeps you going? Because obviously anything that deals with distance and commitment and dedication requires a certain mindset, if you will. What has kept you involved in this project?
One of the things that's amazing is you never know what you're going to find. And so the idea of that next mile, having something that you've never seen before, you didn't know existed in this community, and being really meaningful, I think is one of the things that pushes me keep going.
Michael, you're also a photographer and you know how to operate a drone. You're trying to come up with a project involving this Every Street Tucson?
Yeah, so my goal, I think, when I'm finished is to create like a photo book of the community, of the places that I've been on the project. So I am a licensed drone pilot. I'm also a professional photographer. But what I think has really resonated with people who've sort of followed the project is the drone photography in particular. I use it to sort of show this space that most people don't normally see of their community, right? Like I'm on the ground, and so I'm seeing things from the ground. We can see satellite images, but the drone is really this space between. And there's really some incredible views from, 100, 200 feet in the air that allows people to see the community in a unique and different way. And so my hope is, when I'm done, is to take some of the best photos and publish a book out of it, and talk a little bit about why I've done it, the things that have sort of resonated. It's interesting when you ride around, like it's all of these senses you don't really appreciate when you're in a car. Like if you're riding around at breakfast time, smelling what people are cooking is really interesting. And you see people out in their yard and you wave and say hello. It's not always great. Sometimes I get chased by dogs. I've been chased by a lot of dogs, and that can be a little scary. In fact, there was one street that I was riding on that had 5 loose dogs, and I was like riding down the street. One came out of the yard, started chasing me. I started riding faster. Another came out, and finally a 5th dog came out, and I managed to escape. But there's some scary stuff, and then there's been some close calls with people who haven't been paying attention. And so, always trying to make sure that I'm being safe and, watching out for people who might not be watching out for me.
You have had some friends that have wanted to tag along, but they don't stick around very long.
Yeah, usually people will come with me on one ride, and that's it, and they won't join me again. And I don't think it's because I'm not a fun person to be around. They have said that it is kind of a silly way to ride a bike, especially in neighborhood streets, because you're really doing a lot of stopping and starting and turning around and up and down and back, and it's not the most pleasant kind of bike ride. It's a lot more work, and actually it's a lot more exhausting because you're starting and stopping so much.
Do you know anybody else that's doing what you're doing here in the city of Tucson?
I mean, there are people, like if you go to the Wanderer Earth website, you can see people are tracking where they've been, but I'm absolutely the leader in the community at 80%, and then the Eric, the guy who got me started, is at like 60, and then everybody else is much, much lower. Okay, any idea on when you may finish riding the 2,600 miles in the city of Tucson? If all things go well, I hope this summer. It's about 600 more miles. But I've got the summer to devote to it. It is the most challenging 600 miles now. I was looking before this interview. It's the stuff that's hard. Like one of the places that I have left is the east part of Grant Road, which doesn't have any bike lanes on it. If all things go well, hopefully this summer. But I could also see it stretching out, a little longer than that as well. Michael McKisson, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on your accomplishments. Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening to Arizona Spotlight. This show is a production of AZPM. The production engineer is Jim Blackwood. Production assistance by Sophia Hammer. I'm producer and guest host Tony Paniagua. Have a great week wherever you decide to explore.
AZPM podcasts are made possible in part by donations from listeners like you. Learn more at support.azpm.org. Thank you.